It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, September 29th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that really wishes we could get a little more offense going.
Yeah, just a little.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 20 years, Russ Cohen. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you can win $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. And to keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter. And of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Monday. We will have a nemesis of the week, but I think the two preseason games we're going to talk about, the one against the Caps and then the one against the Bruins, very different games, but some similar threads running through them, right?
Yeah, definitely some similar threads. I think they corrected a little bit of a few things, and then there's some things that are just carrying through, and that's the part that's it's not the coach's fault. It's because of the players just not rising to the occasion, and at some point you got to just weed them out, unfortunately.
Right. So let's talk about that in terms of the camp cuts that have taken place and how we think Rick Tocchet is managing that process. Because this is our first time through that with him. And I
Right.
think it's been interesting, like the strategy that he's been using to whittle down to try and get to the final 23, ostensibly 23 man roster
Right.
to start the season. Obviously, the Phantoms only guys were sent down to start training camp for them at the AHL level. Oscar Eklund was the only one that had to go through waivers in that part of the process. And then we saw Samu Tuamala was the only Flyers prospect with an NHL contract that was sent down in that first batch, which, I mean, it checks out. First off, he has not wowed in any way, but
Right.
we have obviously been talking about how this is a crucial year for him, and that is not a good sign.
No, like I said, no, there's not much hope there. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and then in the next set of cuts that were made, two guys were sent back to junior, and that was Jack Nesbitt and Spencer Gill. And I think ultimately we knew that both of those guys were going back to junior, but I'm curious, Russ, your thoughts on the timing of it for each of those guys, because I think there's different implications for each of them.
Well, I mean, they both were at the game against Boston just in street clothes, so they got to watch that. So they
Right.
probably had night flights. So at least that's good, and they got that little extra time with the team. I honestly think it's for Nesbitt, it's like, hey, now you know what to work on. Go work on it. And and I think with Gill, it's like, yeah, you impressed, but there's things you're just not ready. You're too young, so it's like, and I think he would know he would react to that and say, yeah, that's true. But he, to me, he had the much better camp than Nesbitt. Nesbitt was okay, but Gill was much better.
Right. I think that Gill was more consistent
Hmm.
than Nesbitt was across the board. I think Gill, again, I think you're right. I think they're both, behind where an NHLer needs to be, which is
Right.
fine
Yeah.
because they're kid, they're
Right.
young. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
No beef with that. It's just that as far as consistency of play, I thought Gill was a little bit stronger on that front. Nesbitt had some very high moments and some
Hmm.
very low
Right.
moments as well. And so I think he probably got a little bit more out of it, to be honest, because he learned a lot more
Yeah, it's
than
probably a
maybe
little
Spencer
humbling
Gill
for him.
did.
I mean, he gave a quote the other day that he thinks he did great, whatever. I think he's going to think about it. He's right now he's charged up because he's young. I think he'll think about it and realize, yeah, it was okay. But,
Yeah,
that's fine.
but I also think in some ways, like doing great can be learning what you're bad at, you know?
Sure. Sure.
So that's kind of as of recording where we're at in terms of the camp cuts.
Hmm.
And as far as the prospect development versus trying to put his system in place, we said that was one of the biggest challenges of camp for Rick Tocchet coming in as a new head coach is how do you do both at the same time? Like, how do you figure out where your prospects are and how you're going to develop them based on how they perform in camp versus implementing his system, his defensive structure, trying to put together a new power play, like sort of a gut check. Where do you think Rick Tocchet is as far as trying to accomplish all of that?
Honestly, I think he's done what most coaches do, and it's like, "Hey, kid, you're on the third line. If you could prove it, I'll put you up on the first line." And he's been doing that, rotating, Grebenkin and Bump back and forth
Right.
as they do well. Um, and then he's got young veterans that he has to count on this year, and he's already sort of putting in what I would call the patchwork of that, like having Christian Dvorak be the wing for Trevor Zegras. It's like we all know why Christian Dvorak's on that line. Like, okay, if that's what you want to do, and we could talk about that more in depth later, but that's you know, he's already having to do those things. So I don't get the impression he's thrilled. He's not frustrated or anything, but I think the part about this is going to be a hard job has probably settled in.
Yes, I definitely think that. I think, canceling practice after the
Yes.
Caps game was a huge indication of that, right?
Yes.
Because he's like, "Oh, these guys are gassed and
Yep.
I need to give them a break." That's bad because
Hmm.
that means they're not ready for this camp, right? In some
Yeah.
ways.
And he
But
talked about them again being tired yesterday, and we all saw it in the third period. Like they were
right,
tired.
exactly. And so I think, you know, and again, we hate to compare it to Torts, but he's the most recent
Right.
head coach, and you have to in some ways. Like Torts would make them push through it, and
Right.
Tocchet is taking a different approach with allowing them that day off. Now that he's seeing that maybe it did some good, but not a lot of good, he may change tack on that
I think
front.
he's
But
going to. He talked
yeah,
about the Penguins teams being able to push through it back to back,
yep,
his championship teams that he played on. So I think that is going to happen, and that's going to affect guys like Matvei Michkov, who certainly
he's just raring to go all the time, right?
he's raring to go all the time, but he's not as effective in the third period unless you're playing like on a power play as he is 5-on-5. That's pretty noticeable still.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point as far as the readiness goes, but I think that's something we have to pay attention to
Yes.
for sure. I think as far as, how he's approaching dealing with the prospects, I feel pretty good about it overall.
Hmm.
I mean, it's unfortunate we do have some injuries obviously with Ethan Sampson
Yeah.
injury, and that's a 6 to 8 weeks one, and that's tough to
It
deal
is.
with, right? And then we still have Oliver Bonk, kind of an unknown status there. Carson DeWart still day to day. Lane Peterson now day to day. Again, that was the injury from the Islanders preseason game. So there it's rough in terms of not being able to maybe do what he wants to do with the different combinations and the different guys he wants to see. But at the same time, that's hockey.
Yeah, I mean that is hockey. I mean he's dealing with the injuries. I think now after the Boston game, he knows which guys have a chance to make the team and which guys don't. I do think he knows that already, and I think that's going to show up in the next game. And maybe he'll keep some of these guys around one game longer, but I think after that, you're going to see a bigger round of cuts.
Yeah, I would say that's probably on target. And I think that that's the thing that he's sort of switching focus to right now is whittling down to get the true roster
Right.
and really having a sense of what those combinations are. And I harken back a little bit to what he said early on about liking the pairs approach
Hmm.
and having in terms of forwards, sets of
Right.
two players that he wants to keep together, and then maybe rotating a third guy in. And we're starting to see a lot of that
Hmm.
happening as part of his adjustment process in game.
Yeah, we're definitely starting to see that. I've always been in favor of that. I think that's a good thing. I think as they're getting though to the bottom six is where they're still in flux, I think, with some of that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Looking at just the two games that we saw, obviously both losses, but different kinds of losses, with the Caps game being a blowout and then a much closer game against the Bruins there with
Against a largely AHL roster. Like, we have to say that,
yeah,
because if you look at you break down that roster, it wasn't even the
the
Bruins'
Bruins
best
roster.
guys. Yeah, it's just the Bruins roster. It wasn't. The Flyers had many more NHLers in than the Bruins.
It's true. And I think, the one true positive, I will say, well, there's more than one, but the main true positive coming out of the game against the Bruins was the improvement in the power play, right? Because
Yeah,
they were 0 for 4 in that game against the Caps and
yeah.
then had, two power play goals against the Bruins there. So, and they were good plays too. And they had other chances that were also good. So I was very uh, encouraged by that.
There were good plays. I'm still not going to fall in the trap, though. The trap is to say this, but then you watched them 6-on-4 and they never got set up. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard for me to say it's fixed. I'll just say, yes, there was improvement.
Yeah, I would say, they still have a lot of puck possession
Oh,
issues.
yeah.
The turnovers are aplenty, and I think that's something Rick Tocchet is going to try and really tamper down.
Yeah, he's going to try. I mean, skating is still an issue for this team. Like, they're losing puck races. They're not winning these puck battles. When guys do have the puck in the corner, they're losing it. Like, if Alex Bump had the puck in the corner, Konechny had to go over and try and help get that puck out because he couldn't do it on his own. That takes up a lot of extra manpower and really puts you at a deficit when you have to do that. And that's a lot of what was going on. Uh, Couple of those goals were not on Sam Ersson for sure. The bump turnover, definitely. Me, when I'm goofing around, I would go 5-hole on that too, because he's hugging the post. So that was a smart play off a bad turnover. But that last goal, like, I understand a defenseman gets beat, but that was one where Sam could follow it post to post and still got beat. And then my criticism is still, you got to make that big save sometimes, that 5-alarm, 5-bell save to kind of save your team and change the momentum. And I still don't see that out of him.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about the goaltending overall because we saw some of the other guys again,
Yes.
including the debut of Dan Vladar and some of the pros and cons and ups and downs of the other guys out there. We'll get into all that coming up next. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that is why there is Monarch Money. It's an all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing those finances, Monarch is for you. It does all the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes. You see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending. You'll finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It even helps you notice inefficient investment allocations. You can discover forgotten 401ks from past jobs. You'll save even more money that you can then turn around and reinvest. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, on our Tuesday show, we are going to talk Flyers versus Bruins part this second. Plus, we will be answering your mailbag questions on the Wednesday show as usual. So get those in. You can email us at lockdownflyers@gmail.com, send us a message on any of our socials, or comment on our YouTube channel. So, talking more about the goaltending, I think, yeah, Sam Ersson, like, we've seen him in the past have like one really bad goal in a game and then recover really nicely for
Hmm.
most of the rest of the game. And
Right.
maybe, like, to your point, there's just some bad side to side movement and he'll either let in another bad goal or he won't, depending on the game. But I feel like that pattern kind of held when he got his first full game
I'm 50-50 on it because I kind of feel like he should have made the save on the last goal. I think it was fine until that.
in. Right.
So
exactly.
but that's crunch time, and that's a worry. I mean, for me, that's still a worry. There's only so much you could blame the defense on too. Like defense is going to break down in front of goalies. Like it's just going to happen.
Dan Vladar, on the other hand,
Hmm.
we've only seen him 20 minutes. So,
Which is crazy.
yeah, that fact in and of itself is not great. But I also think you have to have like a giant tub of salt, not just a grain here,
Right.
given the one period here. But I thought he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
The only goal against was on the PK. So, all
Hmm.
right.
No, it's fine. I mean, he's a solid goalie. Is he great? Probably not, but he's really solid. But he definitely needs to play more. Like at
Yeah.
some point, you got to stop playing Bjarnason and
Yeah. Or
Kolosov. I mean,
and Kolosov. I was going to say, I feel like we've seen too much of Kolosov and not
correct.
enough of Bjarnason. If we're just talking about those two
If you're
guys.
asking me, I think Rick was doing that to make Danny happy because Danny was trying to push the fact that Kolosov's a younger goalie and there's development here. And it's like, well, all right, Danny, I get it, but I don't see it yet. So send him down to the AHL.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. Now, looking at some of the guys, we talked a little bit about the power play improvement, and part of
Hmm.
that was due to the Mitchkov Zegras connection,
Yeah,
which is one of those pairs that Rick Tocchet is putting together. And we saw that they have taken extra time at camp to work on stuff after practice together and practicing one timers and really trying to fine tune their chemistry. And I think it is paying off. Like we're seeing
it
stuff
is.
from.
It is. There's definitely better puck movement. There's some good passing. There's still some issues that we could talk about that are obvious, like that were still there from the last time, and it's a personnel thing. But yeah, when those two guys have the puck, they're definitely going to be plays. Were there enough for my taste? No, but it was more than we had previously seen. So I'll acquiesce. But like some of the other things, there is not one defenseman. When Nick Seeler looks best as your offensive defenseman, just kind of getting the puck to the net, that's bad. At one point, by the end of the second period, I think it was or near the end, Jamie Drysdale didn't have a shot on net against Boston, and and Cam York didn't either. Jamie Drysdale almost fell down on one play shooting it, and then defensively he was non-existent. So it's like these things,
Sanheim was fine. I just
Sanheim was
like,
good. No, he
yeah,
was good.
he was
But
really good.
again, so I'm going to go Mike Sullivan, who I think is an excellent coach, said
Yes.
something the other day, and he pointed out how he's already starting to plan how he's going to manage players because if you put players, certain ones, in all situations, there's a thing that has to be managed because going through 82 games, so many minutes, all these things, it wears on a player. We are going to see that again with Sean Couturier and Travis Sanheim unless something changes, and that's a worry.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it yet until we see it in the regular season.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna like try and revert to my torts feelings about
Okay.
that. But I'm gonna definitely put a pin in that. And 10 games into the regular season, maybe we'll take a look at those minutes and the
Hmm.
usage there. But I'm not gonna panic about that specifically yet. I am worried about the blue line overall.
Yes.
In terms of effort and positioning and turnovers and all that. We had talked about Helge Grans specifically, like he had an opportunity
He
here,
did.
and that man did not come through.
It's gone. The opportunity is gone.
Yeah, it's like big turnover in the Bruins game.
Yep.
Got turned around multiple times. Like
Both
I,
games.
just so disappointing, and I'm
Yeah, it's a
bummed out
shame. But
on his behalf.
yeah, it's a shame, but like that's his opportunity, and so he's just not gonna make it.
Yeah. On the upside, though,
Hmm.
on the forward side of things, like Rodrigo Abols continues to impress.
He
Like
did.
he is the definition of consistent in this camp.
Yeah, I mean, he if he makes the team, it gives guys like Dewart and Bump and those other guys time because he's not a long
Yes.
term flyer, but he's there for the next year or two until guys like that could start to populate the lineup. And he did really well in the Bruins game. He got dumped pretty hard. Now he came back and he played because he's a pro. He was a little diminished after that, but he played, so it's fine. But before that, he was one of their best players this whole preseason so far.
Yeah, I thought his positioning was really smart across the board, and I think you're right. I think that's the thing that Rodrigo Abols does is give us time for these other guys to get healthy, and
Yeah,
with a quality bottom six forward there.
right.
So definitely pleased with that. And an assist and a +1 in that Caps game, which was really hard to do given how poorly the team played.
Yeah,
Like the
it's
fact that
true.
that's where he
If
wound
you were a
up.
plus in that game, you really did something right.
Yeah, and he did all the work on
He
the
did.
one goal in the game too. So
Yes.
I think like to stand out in a terrible game like that, I think is pretty impressive.
It was impressive. Now he did a lot of heavy lifting and his skating is definitely improved. Like he's made a jump.
Yeah, I want to talk about Gerbenkin
Mhm.
as well because I thought he had been struggling and not playing
He did.
well, but I did think he up leveled his game against the Bruins enough to stay in the game.
Yeah,
In terms of being under consideration.
he definitely did. Uh, he's a guy now that'll make it to the end of preseason. But again, am I going to say he's a lock for the team for the whole season? No. And when he faces NHL rosters, like true NHL rosters, then we'll have a better idea. But right now, he's doing better than all the other young guys, so he deserves that long look.
Yeah, like speaking of Jet Luchenko, I mean, they're trying really hard to put him in a position to succeed, like especially like putting him out there on the PK, right? But I just it's very clear he's not ready. And again, it's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay
it's
that he's
totally.
not
Well,
ready.
it's
But
okay. It's a complicated okay though, because again, they may not have a choice. They may have to send him back to Guelph. I do want to point out, though, back in the day, they had a choice, but signed him to that ELC. If they never signed him to the ELC, he could have been in college now, which totally would have been the best thing for him. I think everybody now would agree to that, but that's hindsight. So now you kind of have to like either send him back or keep him around a little while and try and get him traded or wait until after the World Juniors. Like nothing is going to be ideal for him, but he's not ready. He's showing on the PK, but even zone entries, the speed is not as good. Like Boston was faster than he was, whether they're AHL guys or NHL guys. His speed was not on display. He made a pass or two, but it was all fleeting, and so he's
well,
just not
and
there.
I feel like he just can't get up the middle like he wants to
No, he can't.
because it's the NHL, and then he doesn't know what to do, and so he makes a pass. He makes a good pass,
He
and
does.
he's smart about it, but his bread and butter isn't there, and he's still working out how to adjust.
Right, and he can't lead a line. He's not ready to lead a line, and as a center, you have to do that.
Yeah, I think he'll get there. I
Yeah,
truly know
yeah,
he'll
he
get
will.
there. He just needs to figure it out,
He's
and that'll take
19.
some
At
time, and it'll
19,
take coaching.
yeah, at 19, this can happen. Again, just because some guys develop quicker than others doesn't mean every guy is going to develop at the same rate. And that's
Right.
just the way it is.
All right. Well, we're obviously going to talk more about these guys, and we'll get a little bit more into how the veterans are playing. Owen Tippett still has some issues there. We have some, PK decisions to talk about that, we mentioned on last week's shows. But in the meantime, it is Monday, and we are going to have a nemesis of the week coming up next.
The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you just don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get 300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built in parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes me watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. I still like the Justin Herbert for MVP. There's some good odds there. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
All right. Before we get to our nemesis of the week, a couple of bigger news stories around the NHL. Of course, the Sasha Barkov injury,
Yeah,
just brutal for the
tough one.
Panthers. And I bring it up again because we have a couple of early games against the Panthers
Hmm.
this season, and that could create some opportunity there if the Flyers' offense could kick it up a notch.
It could. It could. Um, we'll see how they react to that. But yeah, he's their captain and their best center and one of the best centers in the league.
Yep. And Mason McTavish, of course, finally, after these many years, it seems like, uh, getting that contract extension with the Ducks, which I think we knew was going to happen eventually, but it took much longer than it should have.
Yeah, I think it was over those years, and they probably wanted him at the 8 because this is the last of 8, and he decided on the 6, and
Yeah,
that number's a good number. Now, I
for
do
7 million a year, right?
for 7, but if you're telling me that I have to have somebody taking most of the faceoffs for Trevor Zegras and I'm going to pay him 7, he better score 75 points or 80 points because otherwise, I don't want to pay that kind of money for Trevor Zegras. So that's going to be an issue for the Flyers down the line.
Right, right, and that's why we talk about these contracts because
Yep.
there are comparables there.
Yes.
All right, turning our attention to the nemesis of the week. Last week, I talked about the preseason, that there wasn't enough practice and there are too many games. And, we just talked about it earlier in the show that Rick Tocchet felt like he had to cancel a practice because a game went so poorly because they were gassed. And I much rather would have had them spend the time at practice instead of that extra game.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And you talked about a sandwich preference for Capriati's over Primanti's in Pittsburgh, as you were
Mhm.
there covering the USHL tournament that
Yep.
was in town. Oh, you are very good with the food takes, I must say. I mean, I may
Thanks.
not always agree with them, but you have definite opinions and you
I do.
are passionate about them.
I am
And
passionate
so
about it.
I appreciate that a lot. I'm having, a lot of food opinions as you may or may not be aware, and traveling in Dublin. So I've had a lot of very good food to talk about here as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So
Food's good.
I appreciate that. My nemesis this week is related to my travels to Dublin for the NFL game over here. And we have talked about this in the past a little bit, but one of the things that was so great about attending this NFL game between the Steelers and the Vikings, a game of which I care not of the outcome.
Right.
uh, so it was fun to be there. I think I was trying to keep track of which NFL jerseys I saw in the crowd, and the only jersey that I can mentally come up with that I did not see in the entire NFL is the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
And like I'm pretty sure I saw every other team jersey in the stands, and it was so great.
Interesting.
And I think that obviously it's like a special game, so you're gonna have more jersey
Right.
variety in the crowd, but I used to get so cranky about people wearing third jerseys to games in the crowd,
Yeah.
like of a team that
Yep.
wasn't playing in the game. I'm over it. I'm over it now
Right.
because it's
They're
fun.
just showing their football fandom. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
So if you're gonna wear now, if you're gonna wear a Crosby jersey to a Flyers game that the Pens aren't playing
Then
at, I'm gonna
you're,
give you a
that's pushing
little
it.
bit of a side eye there. But I think
Right.
the overall intent is I'm a hockey fan. This is who I
Right.
support. I'm at your game. Let's have fun. And so if you're gonna get too cranky about that, about the extra jersey, don't. Just let people have their fun. Let people love what they love. And I think it's great that anybody's wearing any hockey jersey because the more hockey fans, the better.
Yeah, I agree. We should support all hockey fans. Uh, yeah, mine's going to be against the streaming companies, not the not not the ones that provide the internet, but the ones that provide the entertainment. Okay, so like let's go back 5 years ago, right? People were cord cutting. We had streaming. We were paying for services, and there were no ads. Then it's like, okay, uh, 2 years ago, now it's like, hey, you either have ads or you don't have ads. And if you have ads, now you're going to pay $4 more extra a month because of the ads. Now we're at the point, if you have ads, it's almost as many as regular as general TV was back in the day, broadcast TV. And I just think that's deplorable because like people are paying specifically for your service and you are loading it down with ads, not a lot of people are going to pay for the no ads because a lot of people don't want to pay top dollar. Like some of these services are up to $70 a month, but even the basic ones now, like Disney Plus is not cheap anymore. And so I look at that and I'm like, there has to be some regulation somewhere. This is really like the wild, wild west of TV. And for all those people who complained about cable, it's like now it's like cable's not even enough anymore. Like that's the weird part is if like you have cable like me, you still have other things. You need other things with
Right, because
sports
there's
and other.
exclusive rights,
Yeah,
especially with sports.
especially with
Yeah,
sports. It's a little bit
it's a
crazy.
mess.
It's a mess. And, at some point, people are going to just start choosing sides. Like, hey, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to have to do without that. And I'm going to have to do without that. Uh, and I think that's coming. I think that's really coming down the pike.
Yeah, I remember I used to pay the premium for Hulu with no ads,
Right.
and then the price went up so much, I was like, "Well, I guess we're doing ads now,"
Right. And that's what they
because
force you into. Like, it's like, it's not right.
yeah, and again, especially with sports and especially with hockey, it's just so spread out in terms of what you have to do, and I know, like, baseball is gonna get worse next year
Oh,
with some of
baseball is
the
gonna get bad. It's on Netflix now for opening day. Like, they
yeah,
basically let
brutal.
Netflix hijack opening day. Now, I have Netflix with T-Mobile, right? So I don't even pay for it, but you're paying T-Mobile to pay for it, right? Whatever. So it doesn't affect me, but I feel for people. Like, you
I
already
mean,
have
I
your
don't have Netflix.
right, and you don't people have their regional package. They're not gonna, for one day, worry about opening day, but now it's opening day. It's like, it's kinda special in baseball. Everything's getting hijacked that way online, and I just feel like there has to be some sort of regulation somewhere because otherwise it's yeah, I worry. I wonder what it's going to be in 5 more years. I do.
Yeah, that is a good nemesis to have. And that will do it for today's show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with Flyers versus Bruins, the sequel, and more from Flyers camp. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. Send in those mailbag questions to any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at R Miriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials. SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you the daily league wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. You can find it on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.